You poor loser, did you come here only for the money? Hey, I'm really sick of it. Just get out of here already. Emily, the granddaughter of Kevin, the head of the company, made a startling, forceful comment that surprised me. Even Kevin was pale, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't think of the correct words. I was struck by Emily's attitude, even though her remarks were harsh. She appeared to be in a defensive stance, attempting to prevent further harm rather than wanting to denigrate or oppress me. I'm Shane Williams, a 30-something employee in the IT division of a metal processing business. Some of my former classmates tell me I have a solid future and even express envy because it's a fairly major corporation in the neighborhood. But in truth, I have a lot of questions. The world is changing quickly, and businesses like ours who import and process commodities from abroad are suffering greatly as a result of the recent dollar loss and price increases. Furthermore, technical advancements are happening quickly. We will therefore soon fall behind if we do not prioritize learning and self-improvement. Because of this, employment at a large corporation or one with local clout does not ensure long-term security. The thing I'm most afraid of is becoming unnecessary. I had an accident a few years ago that injured my fingertips. When I got into contact with a machine at work, I had an accident. President Kevin had come to the work site with me and a young engineer named Frank to prepare for a new manufacturing line since he was keen to increase operational efficiency. Frank unintentionally stumbled into a tool when we were inspecting the actual equipment and talking about how to create an effective workflow. "Be careful," I yelled and grabbed Frank's arm out of impulse, yanking him hard back. I staggered toward the part processing machine, leaning forward in the process. Frank and Kevin were staring at me with pale expressions when I realized what had happened. "Call an ambulance right now." "Shane, don't move and remain motionless." "Go get the doctor from the health center, someone." Still pale, Frank was shaking and unable to talk. He was staring at my hand. I became aware of what had happened when I looked down at my fingertips. A stab of pain went through me at that very moment. I immediately passed out from the intense pain and horror of what had occurred to me. I have a handicap in my pinky fingertip as a result of the injury. Despite being categorized as a disability, it has no bearing on my day-to-day activities. I initially found it difficult to function without my pinky finger, but I've since learned to get by without it. I'm actually thankful that, in spite of how risky the situation was, I only hurt my finger and survived. Losing the function of part of my body has made me more appreciative of my health and the ability to live my daily life without any issues. However, Kevin and Frank, who were present at the scene, still seem unable to shake off their guilt toward me. As the leader of the organization and someone who was at the scene, Kevin feels a strong sense of responsibility, which makes his feelings of guilt even more profound. As for Frank, he was so deeply affected by the idea that I had been hurt in his place due to his carelessness that he avoided coming to work for a while. These days he greets me with a smile, but I can tell he's always watching over me, ready to step in and help whenever I'm handling minor tasks or data entry. It's because of such kind and supportive colleagues that I feel secure at work. But even with this great environment, there's no guarantee this company will remain successful forever. The business is doing well now, but knowing that other companies in the same industry have gone under keeps us on our toes. If this workplace were to disappear, what would happen to me, a single man? That's the constant fear I live with. One day, Kevin called me into his office and with a serious expression said this: "Shane, I have a favor to ask. I'd like to introduce you to my granddaughter. Please meet her sometime soon." I was honestly baffled by the unexpected request. As embarrassing as it is to admit, I've never had a girlfriend. It's not that I'm completely uninterested in romance, but while I worked hard on my studies and extracurricular activities, I never had the experience of falling deeply in love or being head over heels for someone. When I was younger, I didn't think much of it. But by my mid-20s, I started feeling anxious about this side of myself. I used to think it'd be nice to get married someday, but as I approached my 30s, I started worrying that I might remain single for life. Determined to change, I tried reaching out to women through social networking sites with shared hobbies and attended matchmaking events to meet potential partners. Unfortunately, my efforts didn't lead to any success. I didn't fail to meet wonderful women, but I was so nervous I could barely speak and couldn't even ask for a second date. I never thought my lack of experience in romance would corner me like this. But after turning 30, I gave up on getting married and building a family of my own. Since then, I decided I would live alone for the rest of my life, and the thought of someone like me being introduced to Kevin's precious granddaughter never even crossed my mind. So it's only natural I was surprised by his proposal. Even though he's my company president, I couldn't easily agree to meet his granddaughter. I'm grateful to Kevin and appreciate all he's done for me, so I wanted to fulfill his request somehow. However, this wasn't just about me and Kevin. This was also about the life of his precious granddaughter. I slowly shook my head as Kevin looked at me with serious eyes. Kevin, I'm very sorry, but I have to decline. I'm already in my 30s, just an ordinary man, and to be honest, I'm not very confident in myself. As you know, I'm not very good with women. As I said this, I unconsciously rubbed my fingertips. I usually stop myself from touching my fingers in public, but with the gravity of this topic, I had already done it before realizing it. Especially when meeting someone for the first time, I feel self-conscious about my fingers being different. Kevin must have noticed this habit of mine. With a sad expression, he looked at me and spoke in a soft voice. I understand how you feel, but you're a much more remarkable person than you think. I know this because I've worked with you. Just meet her once. I want to introduce you to my granddaughter. At first, I thought he was introducing me to his granddaughter out of guilt over my workplace injury, but from what Kevin said, I could tell he genuinely appreciated me to some extent. I was genuinely touched by his words, and given how earnestly he asked, I decided to agree, just once. However, I didn't want his granddaughter to have any preconceived notions about me. I asked Kevin not to mention my injury and that I would explain it myself. That's how I ended up heading to the private dining room Kevin had arranged. We were scheduled to meet one-on-one, so Kevin wouldn't be there to help with the conversation. Even so, I felt pathetic for being this nervous about having a meal with a woman. She probably didn't think of this as anything long-term, but since she was kind enough to come for dinner, I didn't want her to leave feeling bored or disappointed. That thought made me oddly restless. I arrived at the restaurant, but even after the agreed time, Kevin's granddaughter didn't show up. I only knew her name was Emily. I wondered, what kind of person is Emily? As I was thinking this, the door to the private room suddenly burst open. At that moment, I couldn't help but widen my eyes in surprise. To my astonishment, it was Kevin who walked in. As soon as he saw me, he apologized deeply. Shane, I'm so sorry. I know you took time out of your busy schedule, but Emily said she couldn't make it today. Did something happen to her? I asked cautiously. Please calm down. Did something happen to Emily? Kevin looked at me apologetically and slowly shook his head. No, that's not it, actually. He seemed to hesitate, unsure whether to tell me, but eventually he shared the truth. It seems that Emily suddenly decided she didn't want to attend the dinner today and informed Kevin at the last minute that she was canceling. Kevin tried his best to calm her down and persuade her to go, but she apparently refused outright. She must have felt uncomfortable about having dinner with a man in his 50s. For a woman in her mid-20s, having a one-on-one meal with someone significantly older could feel suffocating. I completely understood how Emily must have felt, so I spoke to Kevin with a smile. Kevin, it's okay. I totally understand how Emily feels. Having dinner with someone you don't know, especially when there's an age gap, can be pretty awkward. Kevin shook his head and said, that's not it, but he couldn't follow up with a reason. He probably knew I was spot on. That in itself was understandable and made sense to me. I deliberately spoke to Kevin in a cheerful tone. To be honest, having dinner alone with a woman is a bit nerve-wracking for me too. I was really grateful for your introduction, but I also feel a little relieved, so please don't worry about it. I stepped out of the private room and spoke to the staff. After confirming that neither the food nor drinks had been touched, They told me I could leave without paying a cancellation fee. I informed Kevin of this, thanked him, and left the restaurant. The following week, when I went to work, Kevin came over to my desk. He mentioned he wanted to talk, and I guessed it was about the other day, so I suggested we move to another location. Eventually, we decided to talk in his office. The first thing Kevin did was apologize again. I'm truly sorry about the other day. I had a serious talk with Emily. She seems to feel regretful, but I want her to apologize directly. I want her to grow as an independent and responsible adult. He paused before continuing. I hate to keep asking you for favors, Shane, but could you find a time to meet Emily again? Kevin is incredibly earnest, both in work and in his personal life. He dislikes anything that lacks integrity, and if there's a mistake or misstep, he sets aside his pride and position to apologize sincerely. This attitude is one reason why he's so respected by his employees. It seems he expects the same values from his granddaughter, Emily. I understood Kevin's feelings, but for me, just knowing how he and Emily felt was enough. Kevin, just hearing you say that is more than enough for me. Please, let's put this matter behind us. I'm sure Emily will have wonderful encounters in the future. Please forgive her for this. But Kevin still seemed unsatisfied. It almost felt like he was on the verge of tears and might plead with me, which made me concerned. I made you feel uncomfortable with this whole situation, Shane. Of course, I still hope you could be with someone as wonderful as Emily. But more than that, as the one who raised my precious granddaughter, I want her to become a responsible adult. Would you please humor an old man's selfish request? The truth is, Emily lost her parents when she was in middle school. After losing both parents in a sudden accident, she was consumed by grief. Kevin had already lost his wife early on and took in his teenage granddaughter, raising her as a single parent. His strong parental feelings were likely a big part of this. Understanding his sentiments made me feel inclined to meet Emily again. All right, but let's make this the last time. Please send my regards to Emily. Hearing this, Kevin looked visibly relieved. This time, we agreed to have a meal together with all three of us, and I left his office. On the day of the meeting, I headed to the restaurant feeling less nervous than before. Since I assumed from the start that Emily wouldn't have high expectations of me, I didn't feel as much pressure. However, if she were looking forward to today, I'd be terrified of disappointing her. Emily probably sees today's dinner as a formality to settle things, to save face for Kevin. She'll have the meal, but is likely planning to cut it short. While waiting for her arrival, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. The display showed Kevin's name. Hello, good evening. Thank you for arranging today's dinner. Before I could ask what the call was about, Kevin spoke in a rushed tone. Shane, I'm so sorry, over and over again. Actually, this time it's my fault. As I listened to Kevin explain, I learned that he hadn't been feeling well recently. He had gone to the hospital that morning, where they found something concerning. Although he didn't share the specific diagnosis, I could tell from his tone that it could potentially be life-threatening, not just something that might impact his ability to work. He explained that he had to undergo further tests and asked if we could postpone today's dinner. After hearing this, I quickly returned to the office to make the necessary arrangements. Kevin's absence was undoubtedly a blow to the company, but we couldn't just sit idle. Some of my duties included accompanying Kevin to meetings with other companies, so I reviewed the schedules and identified what could be rescheduled or handled by me alone. Kevin already had enough on his plate with his health. The least I could do was lighten his workload. I updated the upper management, completed the necessary paperwork, and sent Kevin an email within a few days containing all the adjusted schedules and required documents. I also added a note saying that I would provide all possible support even if he needed long-term hospitalization. That evening, my phone rang again. The caller was Kevin, and his cheerful tone immediately put me at ease. I'm so sorry to have worried you, and on top of that, for all the work you did. Shame I couldn't tell you how much you've helped me. Although I only did what was necessary, it seemed Kevin was deeply grateful for my actions this time. At first, His tone was light, but as the conversation went on, I could sense his emotions growing stronger. Then Kevin said something completely unexpected. "Please take my granddaughter as your wife." It may sound strange for me to say this about someone I raised, but she is a kind-hearted girl and just so worried because she hasn't had any good prospects. If it were just about having dinner, that's something I could understand, but asking me to marry her is an entirely different matter. Maybe such arrangements were normal a long time ago, but deciding to marry someone you've never even met once is far from ordinary these days. Kevin must have been so upset that he wasn't thinking clearly. I did my best to stay calm as I responded to him. "Kevin, please calm down. Saying take her as your wife is a bit much. You need to respect Emily's feelings too. You can't bring two people together based solely on someone else's wishes. Above all, Emily's feelings should be the top priority." It seemed like Kevin understood that much, but he was still determined for me to meet her. "Of course, Emily's feelings are important, but I also need you, Shane, to feel comfortable with this. So please, let me arrange another meeting since our previous dinner didn't happen." I agreed to honor my promise to Kevin. On the day of the meeting, as usual, I arrived at the restaurant early to ensure I wouldn't keep anyone waiting. Sitting in the private room with mixed emotions, I waited until Kevin and Emily arrived. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Thank you for coming today. Come on, Emily, say hello." Emily turned out to be far more beautiful than I had imagined. Her elegant features bore a resemblance to Kevin. Her demeanor exuded grace and politeness, but Emily kept her head down and didn't say a word. Is she upset because she didn't really want to come today? Just as I was wondering this, Emily finally opened her mouth to speak. "You're just a poor loser. You came here for the money, didn't you? I'm so over this. Just leave." I was taken aback by Emily's sudden aggressive comment. Kevin also looked pale, as though he wanted to say something but couldn't find the right words. Her words were harsh, but what caught my attention was Emily's demeanor. Rather than trying to belittle or oppress me, it seemed like she was putting up a defensive wall, as if to protect herself from further hurt. Feeling unsettled by this, I turned to Emily and spoke. "I have no intention of being here for money, but maybe there's a reason you think that way. Emily, if you're comfortable, I'd like to hear your story." Emily looked at me, surprised, and after a moment of hesitation, she slowly sat down. The room was filled with an awkward silence for a while, but both Kevin and I silently agreed to wait for Emily to speak. Finally, she broke the silence. I said something terribly rude without knowing anything about you, Shane. And I also canceled at the last minute the other day. I'm very sorry." Emily bowed deeply in apology, and her sincere regret was clear from her demeanor. Then she began to share bits and pieces of her experiences. As it turned out, Emily had dated a few men before, but all of them seemed to have been interested in her wealth rather than who she was as a person. While Kevin had instilled strict manners and etiquette in her, his busy work schedule meant he couldn't spend much time with her. To make up for it, he gave her a generous allowance, which she used to pursue her interests. While Emily herself was content with that, it appeared her classmates were drawn to her for her financial means. Some of her exes would never contribute to the costs of their dates, while others demanded lavish gifts that were clearly beyond reason. Over time, Emily became convinced that men approached her not because they were drawn to her personality, but because they were blinded by her wealth. This led her to develop a deep mistrust of men. Emily then opened up about a sad part of her past that even Kevin didn't know. When her parents passed away in an accident, many relatives rushed to take her in. On the surface, they acted as though they pitied her, but in reality, they were more interested in the financial implications. Even distant relatives were vying for custody, but their language often revealed their underlying motives. Emily, who was at an impressionable age, was deeply shocked by this, and it left a lasting scar on her heart. With teary eyes and a pained voice, Kevin said, "I didn't want her to feel lonely or suffer, so I at least made sure she had enough allowance. But I now realize there were negative consequences to what I did. As for our relatives, I failed her there too. I swore I'd make her happy, and I went against their objections to take her in. But it seems I ended up causing her deep pain. I'm so sorry, Emily. Emily firmly responded, No, Grandpa. I was truly happy to be taken in by you. It's not your fault that I turned out this way. It's mine. Even though Shane came here with an open heart, despite my terribly rude behavior, I decided from the start that he was just after money. That's on me. In short, Kevin had done everything he could to care for his only granddaughter, while Emily's lack of positive relationships had driven her into mistrust. It wasn't a problem that could be solved overnight, but I spoke in an upbeat tone. It's clear how much you both care for each other. I believe good people naturally attract other good people. Emily, I'm sure you'll have wonderful encounters in the future. Though it might not have aligned with Kevin's original plan, today's dinner felt meaningful in its own way. The meal wasn't even finished, but I felt it was best to leave Kevin and Emily to have some time together. Thank you for today. I just remembered some work I need to finish, so I'll excuse myself. With that, I stood up and began preparing to leave. Kevin and Emily exchanged glances, and then Emily smiled at me and said, Thank you for today. I'd like to get to know you better, Shane. If you're willing, could we meet again sometime? I was stunned by her words, completely unprepared for them. My body temperature suddenly rose, and my face turned bright red as I fumbled for words, unable to speak. Emily laughed and pulled out her phone. If it's a hassle, feel free to block me. But for now, how about we exchange contact information? Her cheerful demeanor was such a stark contrast to our first meeting that I felt my heart waver. Clumsily handling my phone, I managed to exchange contact information with her. When Emily said, You'll be in touch, I somehow managed to respond before leaving the restaurant. A few weeks later, I received a message from Emily and we ended up meeting one-on-one. Although I hadn't been nervous at all during our previous dinner, today, as I waited at the meeting spot, my palms were sweaty and my heart raced. It had been a long time since I felt this way. Trying to calm myself, I told myself she wasn't really interested in someone like me. This was probably just a way to pass the time. That thought helped me regain some composure. But when Emily arrived, my heart started pounding all over again. At our previous dinner, we had both been dressed formally. But today, Emily wore a stylish outfit befitting someone in her mid-20s. She looked so stunning that anyone passing by would turn their head for a second glance. When she spotted me, she jogged over with a bright smile. Sorry to keep you waiting. Shall we go? Even though it was my first time going out with her, I had no idea where to take a woman on a date. I didn't know any trendy places or where women might enjoy spending time. I had admitted this honestly during our earlier conversations, and Emily had kindly offered to choose a lunch spot. So today, I relied on her suggestion, and we went to a restaurant she wanted to try. It was an Italian place. I expected it to be expensive, but surprisingly, it was quite affordable. Even though it wasn't overly pricey, the restaurant looked chic, and I could tell the food was likely fantastic. However, I was too nervous to fully appreciate the taste. I could barely focus on anything other than smiling and nodding at Emily's stories. Honestly, I didn't enjoy the meal at all. After we left the restaurant, Emily glanced at my face and asked, Shane, are you not a fan of Italian food? You looked a bit tense while eating. It seemed my nervousness hadn't gone unnoticed. Feeling bad for not fully appreciating the lovely place Emily had chosen, I shook my head vigorously. No, it was delicious. It's just, I haven't been on many dates with women before, so I was really nervous. The more I wanted you to have a good time, the more my mind went blank. For a man in his 30s, it was a pretty pathetic thing to admit. But instead of looking annoyed or mocking me, Emily smiled warmly, like a blooming flower. That's not true at all. So what should we do next? How about we check out that area over there? Emily reached for my arm. Reflexively, I pulled my hand back. I appreciated her gesture, but ever since my accident, I had avoided letting anyone touch my hand or even see it, if possible. It was a subconscious reaction, but it must have upset Emily. When I looked at her nervously, She was gazing at me with a sad expression. Sorry, I acted without thinking. But she hesitated, struggling to find the words. Then, looking me straight in the eye, Emily spoke with resolve. If you think it's something to be self-conscious about, maybe you don't need to. Grandpa told me you got injured protecting someone, right? When Grandpa drinks, he often talks about you. And during those times, even though he seemed pained, he always looked so proud. Her words left me wide-eyed in surprise. I had asked Kevin to keep the matter of my finger to himself, but it turned out he had been telling his granddaughter about the accident for years. Knowing this didn't bother me at all. On the contrary, I could feel the respect Kevin had for me, even as he wrestled with guilt. That alone made me feel a sense of relief. I looked at my uneven fingers, different from those of most people. Then I held out my hand toward Emily. Shall we go? There's a place I've always wanted to visit. Emily took my hand, and we began walking side by side at a leisurely pace. From her hand, I felt a nostalgic warmth, a human connection I hadn't experienced in a long time. The next day, people at work started saying I seemed different. Even I noticed that my voice carried more energy and I smiled more than I used to. Before, I never used my fingers to point at things or check a computer screen. But since the day of my date with Emily, I had stopped being ashamed of my fingers. I was deeply grateful to Emily for giving me the confidence I had long been lacking. A year after we started dating, Emily and I found ourselves dining at the same restaurant where we had first met. As we finished our course meal and laughed over small talk, I reached into my bag and pulled out a box. Opening it in front of Emily, I said, "Will you stay with me forever?" Even though I no longer felt nervous when we were alone together, proposing was another story. I was sweating, my mouth felt dry, and my heart pounded harder than ever before. Emily's eyes filled with tears, and she gently nodded. Of course I will. I'm looking forward to our future together. Wiping my own tears, I slid the ring onto Emily's finger with my uneven hand. Years are so different from us. James and his cronies, who have been bugging me since elementary school, were the ones who informed me this. In addition to James, my classmate, there were two others. Why do all four of these work for the same company? Similar to a school extension. I was, for heaven's sake, praying to God. At the age of 30, I started working for this corporation in the middle of my career. Then James and the others would discover my identity. John Smith is my name. My age is 33. I'll be married soon. How about we look back at my life? I was raised by my parents who were employed at a big firm since I was a young boy. My father frequently traveled overseas for work. We lived in an apartment because we didn't need a big house, and my maternal grandma also lived in the same apartment complex. Amelia was the name of a girl in my class. Like me, Amelia lived with her mother and grandmother and had no father. Amelia and I were in the same school group when I started elementary school, and we grew close as childhood friends. I'm a rather reserved individual. Amelia was intelligent, attractive, and had many friends. My dad and mom were married at the same firm. We frequently spoke Spanish at home because my dad spoke it because he worked for a multinational corporation. My mother was somewhat fluent in Spanish as well. I spoke Spanish at home by default due to my parents' influence. In the lower grades, Amelia and I would play games together. We did not play as much in the older classes, though, as we grew increasingly gender-sensitive. James, who was in the same class as me, initially visited my home with his 3 friends while I was in the 3rd grade. This house is really little. This is not how we can all play together. Isn't your family impoverished? Come on, let's get home. I will become depressed over poverty. Yeah, let's go home. My grandmother appeared to hear it from my room since she was in the kitchen at that very moment. John, you know, we're not poor, she said to me after everyone had gone. Please don't worry about it. However, as a poor man living in a small apartment, I was bullied at school, particularly by James. I didn't mind, but I couldn't make friends with James since he was domineering. Since I didn't dislike studying, I reviewed and prepared throughout my lunch break by myself. My dad was moved back to Europe during my final year. At school, I was a member of a book club. Amelia belonged to the same club as the lads, but she was also tormented, possibly as a result of the girls' jealousy. Eventually, her upbeat demeanor shifted. It appeared like she had no pals. She was alone, reading softly. I really had feelings for Amelia, but my heart was pounding, and I couldn't even speak to her. I was a good student, but my mom gave me a tutor and a private tutor for Spanish conversation as well, so I was spared from the after-school loneliness. The two teachers were fun to joke with and made me laugh while I studied. The harassment of James and his friends continued in junior high school and continued in high school as well. At that time, James was on his cell phone and he was still texting his classmates all over the class about how I was poor and that if they befriended me, they would be poor too. Amelia and I also went to the same high school. Then, Amelia came to my house one day and told me about the email. I probably would have been red in the face at her unexpected visit. "John, there is this email going around. I saw it too, but I don't think someone ought to do that." "Oh, Amelia, thanks for telling me." "Yeah, I don't mind, you know." I thanked Amelia for her help. Thanks to my tutor, my first test was first in my grade, so James and the others' harassment got even worse. "What the hell, John? You're poor, but you can only study. I bet you don't have any friends anyway, and you can't even get them to buy you a game." I ignored them. Then I went home, and my school shoes were not in my locker. I went to the staff room and told the homeroom teacher about it. James and his friends had joined a soccer club, but I was taking tutoring classes after school. One day, James said to me, "Hey, John, you can't even buy your school shoes, you poor thing. Wearing sports shoes even on the way home." I don't know when he saw my locker, but he came all the way to my class, even though we were in different classes, and laughed with his friend. This convinced me that James was the one who hid my shoes somewhere. Then Amelia approached me from behind on her way home. "John, you're wearing shoes?" "Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been putting my shoes in my school bag since someone stole them before." "I see. You've thought about it." "Yeah," I said, and we walked home together. Though we were silent that day, before getting on the elevator at our apartment, Amelia said, "I'm working part-time at a restaurant there right now. Come eat with your family if you want." "Oh, I'd love to, but I have a day off shift. So do you want to exchange contact information, just in case?" "Well, yeah." With that said, we exchanged cell phone addresses via infrared. I told my mom and grandma, "You know my neighbor Amelia? She works part-time at a restaurant, and she told me to come over with my family." "Really? Well, let's go this Sunday, shall we?" So I texted Amelia's cell phone, asking if she would be there on Sunday. She replied that she would be, and I went to the restaurant with my grandma and mom. Thanks to both Julie and John's grandma for coming. "Amelia, you've become more and more beautiful." That's what my mom and grandma said. And Amelia said, "Thank you," with a pretty face, light makeup, and a blush on her cheeks. I thought she was really cute too. We ordered lunch and had them. Amelia had good customer service and worked well. I'm more of an introvert, so I respected Amelia for that. In my second year of high school, I was in the same class as James. I was still not taken seriously by my classmates because of him. My studies were quite advanced with tutoring, and I was already studying for college. I was bored out of my mind at school. So one day I missed school. I wanted to drop out of high school. Even though I say I don't mind being harassed, I didn't want to see James and the others as much as possible. I decided to talk to my mom about it. Then I told her about the abuse from James and decided to take the high school equivalency test. I accepted my high school diploma right away. I had Spanish and other tutoring at home during the day and continued my studies. My mom bought me a computer. Study properly for now and learn the keyboard while chatting on the computer. I sent an email in Spanish to my dad in Europe to let him know what was going on. My dad responded the next day, also in Spanish, due to the time difference. The content of his email was, "Would you like to come to Europe?" I discussed it with my mom. She pushed me to go and study because the world is a big place. I wanted to be the first to tell Amelia. Amelia sent me an email. I see you quit school, and I was wondering what to reply. I gathered my courage and wanted to talk to Amelia alone. Once, I texted Amelia to find out the day of her part-time job and asked her what time she would be off work. I then told her that I would be at the restaurant before 8 p.m. at the end of Amelia's part-time job. Then, on the appointed day, I ate at the restaurant with Amelia after her part-time job. I felt like my heart was going to jump out of my chest. Hi, Amelia. You quit school, didn't you? Yeah. There's something I really wanted to say to Amelia alone. Yeah? What's up? I'm actually going to Europe because my dad is working there, but I want you to keep it a secret. Amelia, do you have a computer? I want a computer, but I'm saving up for one. I see. This is my computer email address. If you buy a computer, email me if you want. I might not be able to reach you on my cell phone. Yeah, I get it. I want to go there too. I lost my dad early, and I'm living with my mom and grandmother. And my mom's brother, who is my uncle, took good care of me. My uncle speaks Spanish, and I adore him. Then I'll teach you Spanish when I get back home. I'm looking forward to it. Good luck buying a computer. With that conversation, I cycled home on the night road. Amelia, at that time, said goodnight, and we parted ways. The next week, my dad came to pick me up. Then I left for Europe with my dad. I didn't have very good memories of my school life. My heart was excited about my new life, leaving all those unpleasant things on the clouds I could see below. I spent some time in my dad's apartment. My dad bought me some study books, and I worked hard on my studies. I also learned native Spanish by shopping and walking with my dad. After that, I went to a university in Spain and started living in a dormitory. Although there were some Americans at the university, I made Spanish friends. No one harassed me, and I enjoyed my university life. It's been 4 years of diligent study so that I can graduate, since graduation is very difficult. Then, at the age of 22, I graduated. My dad's company introduced me to Williams Corporation, where I started working as a salesman. It is a major furniture manufacturer in Spain. The older students were good people, and it was fulfilling to occasionally go out to eat, etc., with them in native Spanish and to meet with friends from my school days. One day, I got an email on my computer. It was from Amelia. How are you? Sorry it's taken me so long to get back to you. I bought a computer, but it took me a long time to get used to my job. I got the job right after I graduated high school on my uncle's advice. I finally learned how to use a computer properly. Amelia, thanks for your message. I'm working in Spain. I'll be working here for a while, but plan to return one day. Amelia's email made my heart skip a beat. After that, although there was a time difference, I frequently emailed Amelia to report on what was going on. In an email from Amelia, she told me that James and his friends had all been accepted to Stanford University and that the 4 of them had joined the same company as AIAs, as new graduates on good terms. I suddenly almost laughed, wondering how close those 4 mean guys were. I got used to business negotiations in Spain, and I got a lot of contracts. My dad seemed to be pretty good at his job, and he was the executive director at the time. Amelia did not seem to meet anyone in particular and continued to work as a clerk. I was 30 at the time. Around that time, my dad told me it was time to return to America and do my best at the American branch. Then I got a job as a sales representative in the U.S. office. When David, the section manager, introduced me to everyone, I couldn't believe my eyes. Amelia was there. Then there was Sam and 2 others led by James. Amelia, James, and the others rolled their eyes. The branch manager here and my dad are good friends, and since I was new to sales in the U.S., I asked the branch manager to treat me as a mid-career hire and said I would work hard from scratch. My background was kept secret from the employees. So I was taken from being a flatbed employee to running a sales operation by the section chief. But first, it was a meet and greet. James and the others would be my seniors, in a manner of speaking. There are 4 people in my office that I didn't even want to meet. I emailed Amelia since she had a computer. First, Amelia kept the secret. Then I promised to go out to dinner with Amelia. After leaving the office, I stopped by a restaurant with Amelia. I was really surprised. Already, I had heard that someone new was coming in, but I didn't realize it was John. Sorry, I should have told you first, but I didn't expect Amelia to be here, and James and the others. That's right. I was surprised to see that James and the others were the 4 new graduates who joined the company. My uncle is the branch manager here. Right? Really? Then the branch manager's niece was Amelia. Yes. It really is a pleasure to work with you, John. I'm surprised and happy too. My dad used to work at the head office here, so I was working in sales for the company, and he told me it was time for me to go train in the U.S. Oh, that's right. Now you know. I'm living alone near my office because it's such a long commute. Oh, me too. I'm living in a studio. How are your mom and grandma? I go home on holidays sometimes, but they are fine. What about John's mom and grandma? My grandma has dementia and is in a nursing home. My mom is still working. She works in the general affairs department here. What? Julie's in the general affairs department? Yeah, it's been so long. It's a surprise today. Would you like to have dinner together like today in the future if you like? Oh, of course. Amelia and I often had meals together, and our relationship gradually deepened. I was a shy salesman in the U.S. It was difficult to improve sales performance. Then one day, when David was not around, "Hey John, how did you get into this big company? You dropped out of high school. You graduated from middle school. Have you been out of town since then and doing freelance work?" I got a high school diploma, in case you're wondering. Well, I'm a freelancer. It just so happens that this place accepts high school graduates. I think I passed the interview. It's still tough being poor. We're the elites who graduated from Stanford University. I see. I gave him a brief response. Sometimes I was called by the branch manager and asked to prepare materials on furniture imported from Spain. They are supposed to translate the work into Spanish and give it to the sales employee. Please, hey John, you'd better put together my contract documents for today. A bottom feeder like you can't close any business at all. Yeah, I'm not a good salesperson. Saying this, I took the materials from James. James commanded Sam and the others, "John, keep this together." They left the materials on my desk. I was in the sales department, but I told the branch manager how it was going and how I was a student, and told him that I was just putting together papers and doing chores. The branch manager said, "I'm sorry, John, but your material is perfect. Besides, Amelia told me that you were classmates with her too." Yes, we were in the same apartment complex, so we were like childhood friends. She is my precious niece who is struggling but has a good heart. Be good to her. Of course. After that, Amelia still enjoyed having dinner and going to the movies together as friends. Sometimes we even went to my parents' house together. Amelia had become a much more beautiful and elegant woman. I was crushing on her every day. I'll have to tell her sometime. 3 years passed. With that thought in mind, I kept in touch with Amelia on my cell phone, and the days passed by. I made up my mind one day. I have to propose to Amelia. I then invited Amelia to a fine restaurant. The ring was in my pocket. Thank you, John. I've never been to such a nice place before. Oh, it's my first time here too. Thanks for all the secrecy. I've ordered a course and we're going to have a nice dinner. Yeah, I fell back in love with Amelia and her beautiful dress. We were enjoying a delicious meal and talking about our old days, but my heart was very loud. At one time, Amelia was envied by the girls and was quiet and alone in the classroom. Once she started working, she was back to being as cheerful as when she was a little girl. When we had finished some food and were ready for dessert, I said, "Amelia, I've always liked you for a long time. If you like, please go out with me on the premise of marriage." I bowed my head that way and handed her the small box. Amelia gently accepted the small box. I've always loved John, too. Thank you. I'm glad. Amelia looked at the diamond ring, tears welling up in her eyes, and confessed to me. And we were going out on the premise of marriage. One day I thought I had to tell the branch manager, but Amelia said she reported it to him first. I was still working nonchalantly, leaving James and the others in charge of the materials for lunch. Amelia secretly made my lunch. She was worried because my lunch was always junk food. Then James told me, "Hey, did John start cooking for himself? You're still poor as ever? Or is that Mom's lunchbox?" "I'll have to cook for myself," I told him so in a casual manner. When I returned from my lunch break to my desk, I received an extension from the branch manager. "I'm sorry, John. Can you come to my office for a minute?" "Yes, sir." Then I knocked on the branch manager's room. He asked me to sit on the couch. "I have a sales pitch for a foreign furniture brand in a new residential area coming up, and I have a Spanish client coming in. Could you work with me to translate and present it to the customer?" "Understood. Please let me do it," I answered. On the day of the visit, I took the form of a normal business trip and went to the airport with the branch manager to pick up the client. I then greeted them in fluent Spanish. Later, I went with the client to one of the real estate companies. New home buyers were directed to the real estate agent. The client and I pulled out a catalog and explained to the customer in English the durability and quality of the Spanish furniture and sofas. I translated carefully to the customer as I interpreted. Most of the customers decided to buy sofas and furniture. The business meeting was successfully concluded. The branch manager and the Spanish client decided to go to a fancy restaurant. The client was happy to hug me. They were smiling and enjoying their meals. That night, I dropped the client off at his place of lodging, and I was left alone with the branch manager. I went back to the office where everyone had left with the branch manager, and he said he needed to talk to me. "Thank you very much for today. It was a good business meeting thanks to you, John. Actually, we are planning to have more foreign brand furniture business meetings like this in the future. I wonder if I could ask John to be the managing director of this branch office." "What? I'm the executive director?" I also heard about Amelia. Amelia is a high school graduate, but she is good at accounting. I hope that you and Amelia will eventually support this company together. Thank you. I have a little problem. James and his colleagues in sales are taking credit for the business meetings of junior salespeople. David, the section manager, found out about it. I emailed the juniors one by one to ask them about it, and they said there was no mistake. From today, you are the executive director, but I want you to secretly watch James and the others for a while. What are those guys doing in the first place? They are in a position to mentor the juniors. Yes, sir. Oh, and about your marriage to Amelia. When you two decide on your plans, please invite me to the meeting with your mother. Of course, sir. My face got a little hot. It probably would have been red. After that, I became the executive director. David and I were on the floor, watching James and the others. The materials given to me by James and his colleagues were indeed many of those contracted by the juniors. I put a sticky note on the document and handed it to David, and I took a copy to my department head as well. Although they almost caught me in the act, James and the others seemed to think that I was reporting their exploits to the director. They were on top of things now more than ever and reported on the juniors' performance as if they were their own, that James and his team report. But later, it would all be damages. I kept quiet for a while, and after dinner with Amelia, we were talking about it. James and the others have always had bad personalities, I said. But it wasn't just their personalities. Too bad. Then I changed the subject. Branch manager asked me to invite him to our family meeting. All right, when shall we do it then? How about this coming Saturday or Sunday? The meeting between our two families was set for the following Saturday night. Amelia's mom and my mom are good friends in the neighborhood, and they were pleased with our marriage. My mom had a nice conversation with the branch manager as well. Amelia and I were smiling and enjoying our meal. My dad looked up from his computer and spoke with Amelia and the branch manager. We were going to have a ceremony in Hawaii, just the two of us. The branch manager and my dad gave us a 3-family house near the company where Amelia's mom and my mom could live together. Amelia and I jumped for joy. I couldn't believe that my marriage to my childhood friend, whom I'd had my heart set on for a long time, would become a reality. Then we both turned 35 and got married in Hawaii. Amelia's surname was Brown, but it became Amelia Smith. However, she still went by the name Brown at the company. The sight of the beautiful Amelia in her wedding dress was burned into my eyes against the backdrop of the blue ocean. It really was picturesque enough for me. Amelia was in tears. My wedding ring was out of the way at work, so I took it off. One day, James said, "I saw you the other day, John. I saw you and Amelia walking around town together. Well, you two high school graduates from the bottom of the barrel make a good match. Amelia's always been beautiful, but I can't believe she chose John. Amelia's so stupid." "Hey, James, you can talk about me, but don't talk bad about Amelia," I yelled in anger. "Oh, yeah? That's a hot thing. It's funny, me, Sam, and the guys, we're about to get a promotion soon. Wow, that's a big difference from the bottom of the barrel. You'll always be a floor employee, and you and Amelia will work hard. See, Sam? Oh, we're getting a promotion. You'll always be poor old me." That's what Sam told me too. I was so dumbfounded. Well, that's a great story for me too. By the way, do you want to be sent north or south? "What are you talking about?" I asked. "John," James says, and the other 3 open their mouths and pout. Then David, who already knew everything about me, appeared. "James and the others, it is John's orders. John is the executive director now. Okay, you guys would be better off in the cold. So how about Minnesota? James and the 4 others will be transferred to Minnesota. Prepare yourselves immediately, and I'll deduct the amount of sales performance that you have stolen from the junior staff from now on from your salaries. So be prepared." What? John, executive director? That's right. It's not about the bottom line or John or Amelia. I'm sorry for James and the others, but this company is not based on academic background. It is a meritocracy. John graduated from a famous Spanish university and worked at the head office. He had been a mid-career salesman in the U.S. since the beginning, but he was a very successful salesman in Spain. The other day, he just had a big business meeting with our client. More business meetings will increase in the future. The new employees are also all fluent in Spanish. You guys have been taking those junior employees' grades and making them your own behind their backs. Prepare yourselves well and do your best, all 4 of you, in a cold region. "Oh no," David said. Then the other 3 turned blue, and they were on their knees toward the juniors, crying and apologizing. The juniors were silent. "Now, James and the others, get ready and get out of here. This is an executive order, okay?" When I said this, James and the others rounded their backs, cleared off their desks, and left the floor. The juniors were delighted, and they were hailing. James and the 4 others then voluntarily resigned, saying they did not like the cold region. It appears that damages have been notified to the 4 individuals through their attorneys. Meanwhile, we got our new 3-family house, and we're living happily as a family. Soon after, our baby was conceived in Amelia's belly. My dad is also happy to return home once his grandson is born. The branch manager has a smile on his face every day. Our moms and Amelia's grandmothers sometimes gather in the living room to enjoy dinner, and our family always smiles. I forgot all about my dark school days and vowed to work hard to protect my new family and follow in the footsteps of the branch manager.